Welcome back to the 7th grade mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about cosign. When a person says they cosign for somebody, that means they vouch for a person. That means they're standing behind the reputation of a person that they are recommending to you, or somebody that you are about to do business with or have some type of arrangement with that person. So if a person comes to you who's like, hey man, this guy's legit, I co-sign on him, you're putting your rep on the line, actually.
Yeah. What you're saying is he or she is a stand-up guy, stand-up gal. That, okay, you talking to them is like you talking to me. That's what you're essentially saying, or at least for that subject, because just because they're solid for one thing don't mean they're solid for something else. That's
really important, because people will use that term cosign as a blanket statement for everything, meaning this person that you're vouching for is probably a really good negotiator, but has terrible ethics. Or this person is really good at doing a specific job or has a specific skill, but that person is limited to just that narrow spectrum. And this is not a person that you would bring along to, say, a barbecue if they're antisocial.
Look, like, here's the deal. Like, some people, like, when you hear the word solid, like, that means that what they say is solid or what they do is solid. But I used to have a homeboy, I used to call him Ice Cube, and people thought it was like, a good thing. Like, nah, Ice Cube is because his word seems solid at first, but you give it 15, 20 minutes in the sun, it's going to be soft. And that's what people don't get. Like, people don't get vetted anymore. If somebody says, like, hey, how'd you know this guy? You used to see that shit in the old TV shows when they had a cop trying to like infiltrate like the hood or some shit. Well, how you know Johnny? Where you know him from? Oh, you did a bid with him using that kind of shit. So when somebody's been vetted, or when somebody is, I know a guy, he knows my cousin, knows my aunt, we know each other. It's like that person is part of the family just because I vouch for him. So you got to be careful who you vouch for. These people, they're fugazi, they're fake, or they want something, or they're trying to sneak in. People don't know this. It took the FBI years to infiltrate like LA street gangs. You know why? Because you weren't from that hood. You couldn't just vouch for somebody. You literally had to grow up with the motherfuckers. So that's what you're trying to say when you're saying that somebody's been vetted or something.
Well, but see, also, okay, part of the problem is the fact that some people are too trusting. And so they become entangled in a whole bunch of nonsense that they don't need to be involved in. So the problem becomes either you're not learning from these mistakes and your life is a lot of bullshit through association, and nothing changes. And so this person then takes on this victim mentality. I don't know why my life is so fucked up. Look around you. Pay attention to the decisions you're making and the people you put around you. You co-sign on these motherfuckers and they stealing shit out of your house.
But also, you got to hold people accountable too. Like, I'm not saying that you got to get in a fight or whoop everybody's ass, but if somebody does you wrong, they should know that they should not want to do that. They should not feel comfortable fucking you over.
I want to speak to that. So ghosting is another way of saying cowardice. People in this current time, in this current generation, have made it popular to be cowardly in your interactions with other people. So, you know how they say if they ghost somebody, meaning that you'll call a person, they don't answer the phone. People are so afraid of confrontation that they will not face a situation and deal with it to prevent any other provocation.
That's actually kind of deep. Here's the deal. We've joked about this in the past. I've used the analogy. How come Martin Luther King has a holiday and Malcolm X doesn't? Because he was nonviolent. Well, you have people nowadays who think that their inactivity is an activity. You have people who don't do shit, but they swear that, oh, I'm on the higher ground because I didn't do anything. No, you didn't do anything because it's a sign of weakness. You didn't do anything because you don't force your convictions on other people. And don't get me wrong when I say for. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Look, man, let me jump in right there real quick.
Yeah.
Karma is inescapable, but people make the mistake. People make the mistake of thinking that karma is only from action. No, you get karma from inaction as well.
As well. Thank you. See, the whole thing is people, like I said, former podcast, people love to sound smart. So they're saying, well, since I didn't do anything, then they justify their inactivity by saying they're smarter than me. Well, I didn't do that because of this, this, and this. And like you didn't do it because you're weak and you're a pussy. And you didn't want confrontation. You didn't want to hold somebody else accountable. You didn't want to get in somebody's grill. And not every situation calls for physical altercation. But if if somebody hit your kid or somebody did something that they weren't supposed to do to your niece or nephew, and what are you going to do about it? Talk? Sometimes you got to get physical. But the fact is this: you can't convince yourself that you not doing something is you being smart. You're being conservative. Maybe you're like, okay, this wasn't the time or place, whatever. But stop convincing yourself that you're smarter or better because you didn't do anything.
Right, right. And so there's a saying: evil persists when good men
Good
do.
men do nothing.
So, in carrying on with the cosign theme, when you cosign on some bullshit, you are bringing negative karma to you. Bad karma happens when you allow yourself to be involved and you cosign or you endorse a certain activity or inactivity. For example, if you see a young girl get snatched up by a pedophile and you don't do anything, man, you're going to have a woman or a child or somebody in your life that's vulnerable that will have that happen to them. It may not be immediate or it may be, but it depends. But my point
I get it. You might not have the strength to physically do something, but get that license plates or yell, hey, film it, make them uncomfortable.
Get in your car and chase that dude. Run him off the road. Like, listen, man, I'll tear my car up before I let somebody that just snatched a kid into a van escape. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like my car isn't worth nothing compared to the misery that person is going to go through if they are captive to that creature.
Look. How about this? How about co-signing on organizations? Operation Push, Jesse Jackson. Co-signing on the NAACP, who they're not what they used to be. Co-signing on Black Lives Matter. Yes, the concept of Black Lives Matter is important. The organization, yeah. Look, you can call somebody anything. You can name me Michael Jordan. Don't mean I can play basketball. Saying Black Lives Matter as an organization doesn't necessarily mean that they're fighting for Black lives in the manner that you agree with.
Right.
We co-sign all the time. We validate things all the time because hell, labeling and marketing is a big thing. You know, I remember watching wrestling and Vince McMahon would say, "We're building a brand. We're building equity." Well, sometimes that shit is bullshit. It's not real. You're building something. People recognize the name, well, but it's the same thing when it comes to people. You know, if you know a guy's a piece of crap and you see him cheating on his girl, you ain't gonna say nothing because we all dudes, we're all buds. I had my homegirl say, "Man, y'all niggas stick together." I'm like, "Nah, you didn't ask me. If you asked me what was up, because I've known you longer and we're a friend and I'm a stand-up guy, I might not tell you what he did, but I say, you know what, it's not a healthy thing." Because the problem in that situation, as a man, if I say something negative about that guy, then I sound like I'm trying to get at his girl or I'm a hater. I'll just be honest with you. I would say something to the fact that, you know what, I don't think that's the healthiest relationship for you. Because, again, you know, men, I How about this? I'll give you a situation. I hope we don't listen to the podcast no time soon. Look, had a homeboy used to cheat on his wife like all the time. So all my other homeboys had never seen his wife before. This sounds crazy. They had never seen her, right? So one time we're at a gathering and his wife shows up. And do you know what these dudes said to me? They're like,
Mm.
"Hey man, duct tape, you never said his wife looked like that. She's gorgeous. How come he does what he does?" I'm like, "Hey, I don't comment on that." Like, um, now I got another story that I can tell you off the air about old girl, but that's for another day. But the bottom line was they couldn't, why does he act the way he does? What's going on with that situation? His wife is beautiful. The chicks he would cheat with were not on her level. I'm like, hey man, there's some other issues going on there that y'all not familiar with. but that's the whole thing, is that if I were to say that, hey man, I don't know why he does that, they would like, man, you just hating on him, man. He getting all that pussy. You just mad because you ain't getting none.
Right.
Yep. See, that's that kind of shit, right? And the truth of the matter is, I don't comment on a lot of shit that I see. Not because I wanted to continue, but because there's no good way to deliver that. But I've had a homegirl ask me about her old man, and I just was like, I'm not going to say what he did particularly, but I will say that I don't believe him. I was with him, and I don't believe him. That's not how that shit went down. So, but that's what my brother's saying about cosigning. Sometimes people drag you in. What about that? What about when somebody says, "Hey Roscoe, did you see that?" And you like, "Nah, man, I wasn't here." But
Okay. Look, man, there are many crossroads for teachable moments in life. And it is the duty of the civilized to teach the uncivilized. That's an old saying that 5%ers used to say back in the day.
oh yeah.
And so if you are a man of knowledge, if you are a man of experience, it is your responsibility to teach when possible, because that knowledge is useless unless you share it with other people. And so,
I'll give you an example. I remember I was kicking it with your little brother, and he had never kicked it with me before. And I remember he must have called you like a day later, like, man, yeah, duct tape is cool as, shit. I would show him stuff. I would have a real conversation. It's not that we just didn't travel in the same circles, but when he got time to spend with me, he saw what I was really like. Whether it was women, whether it was cars or whatever. I'm trying to bring you along. I'm not saying that I'm better or farther along than you, but I just have a different knowledge base, and I want to show you. I want to teach you. I want you to be prosperous, and
right.
hopefully you do the same for me. I hope if you see a gap in my knowledge, you try to help me fill it.
But see, that's the completion of the circle, because you being around my father, you picked up all kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
But people don't want to share knowledge no more. They're too busy being stingy, thinking
that's exactly what I'm saying. It's your duty to share with those people, because you make the community better by sharing that.
I'm not worried about the competition. The reason people don't teach, they're so worried about the competition. We talk about this boule shit, and you got all these brothers that want to be part of this boule. I want to be a secret organization. I want to be
secrets.
Look, that's the whole problem. Like the whole thing is, that's what white folks did to us. It was illegal to teach a brother to read. You didn't want to teach a brother his history. If an African or a Native American knew where they came from, you couldn't make a slave out of them. So why, after we know this, or why would I sit here and hide any knowledge from you? Now, if you ask me, some things, look, you ain't ready for that. I call it baby food and steak. A child can eat a baby can eat a steak, but it's very difficult. They can't digest it and chew it. So you have baby food. So I'm like, some knowledge I know, I can't lay on you yet, bro. You ain't ready yet. I'll bring you along, but I'm not going to charge you nothing either.
This is the thing, but I play to my audience.
Yes. Know your audience, yes.
But here's the deal, though. That doesn't mean I dumb it down. All I simply do is I give you the information that you can absorb. You know what I'm saying? And so, for example, for example, there are complex ideas and these concepts that are arcane. If you they're clear to you and you can communicate, then you can actually break that down and make it plain. What Neil deGrasse Tyson does is exactly that. He takes all this knowledge of physics and the cosmos and he makes it simple. So there's no reason why you can't apply that to any subject matter. Some people just like to sound smart.
Ooh, sound smart, not be smart. Sound smart.
Right. And so I'll get around these quote unquote intellectuals and I'll listen to them talk and I let them talk. And then I'll wait for that opening and I'm like, all right, that's cool, man. But let's just get down to the grizzle. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just cut it straight and just stop playing around. Let's stop pussyfooting around and get straight to the point here.
Hey, but hold it. Have you ever been in a circle where you're having a deep conversation and the other person obviously didn't know how smart you were, and then you say one or two things, they're like, oh, then what they realize, I don't have to. I'm Superman. I can take the shackles off and I can actually be myself.
Check this out. So, in Dragon Ball Z, when Goku would fight somebody,
he would take the weights off.
Yeah. So no. But see, the fights, they always start in a low level. But what would happen is the guy would come in, his opponent would come in, and he would like have some move or some form of attack, and then Goku would counterattack, and his attack would raise the level of combat. So I do the same thing in discussions. So when somebody is engaging in these types of intellectual discourses and they're going on and on and on, I say, all right, that's cool, but let's take this to another level. Let's make this palatable. You know what I mean? Because a person will just use a bunch of terms and it sounds waxing poetically and making it sound all pretty. But that's all it really is, man. It's a lot of whipped cream and not a lot of pie.
No pie, no cherry, just whipped cream. Like,
yeah.
Here's what happened to me recently. I was at a very good friend's wedding, and one of my best friends was getting married. And there's a guy there saying, hey, I want you to meet this dude. And the guy has a PhD. And he didn't tell me that. He had told me in the past, that he would introduce me to this dude. So we're talking, and he was talking about some concepts, and his doctorate in economics and finance. I have my bachelor's in that. And so he had said some things, and I hit him with, I started naming off Thomas Sowell, Friedman. He's like, his eyes just lit up, and he just started talking. He was so happy that he didn't have to talk down to me. He said some deep shit. He said, you hear these politicians and these like leaders of these companies talk about certain people or certain books, and he's like, I bought all these books. I had never read them, so he started reading these books, and this person who he thought was maybe dumb or whatever. What it is that these politicians, they basically take what people say and they make a caricature out of it, and they dumb it down, or they pull the part that applies to what they want to do. When this person was talking about something, a bigger concept, a larger scale, and he's like, he was just so excited that he could actually have a real conversation with somebody. I'm like, yeah. Now,
hey, hang on a second. I'll be right back. All right. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. You straight?
All right, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so he was so happy that he could actually speak freely. But now here's a problem with that. So many times, as an African American person of color, Black, Native, whatever, white folks think you dumb, so they don't even talk to you, and so, or they don't have the full conversation. So he was able to have a full conversation with me. He was relieved. It wasn't that he was racist or nothing like that.
Let me ask you a question, man. Like, how often do you find yourself holding court?
Very often. But me and you talked about this. We had this conversation 15 years ago, before Day had passed, before a lot of stuff. And you were like, how often do you get to have deep conversations? And I'm like, man, just you and Day. I'm like, I'd be like, hey, Roscoe, when you in town, even on the phone, it ain't the same. But when you're in town, we always hold court. We have a cipher. We have these conversations. And I remember one time we were doing it, and your little brother and his homies walked in and just listened to us because these are concepts. Not nobody's saying anybody's dumb. It's just the fact that nobody even talks about this or expounds about this in certain situations. And
Right.
so we would have these deep conversations, and I'm like, yeah. And I told you, I've had the problem with somebody else who wants to have deep conversations, and they don't bring any intelligence. You don't bring anything to it. I could talk to myself if I want to talk to somebody smart, but I
But
want to
here,
engage.
but check this out. But check this out, man. So, but within fellowship,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is much to be learned from one another. And so it's good to invite people around who are not on the same level so they can, benefit from being around, experienced people. So
How many dudes have you hung with that were younger than you? You had to teach them about women. Like
quite a
I,
few.
I remember, okay, when I had the record label, I had a roommate and he had a homeboy who used to come over, and this dude was younger than us, and he didn't know about women. Like,
Hold on. Is this the broken table incident guy?
okay, he was there that night, but he's not the one who broke the table. No. And
Okay.
so I'm like, dude, he would frustrate me. I'm like, dude, he's like, because he's fat, I'm fat. So because I'm fat, he would think that I didn't have a chance with women. I'm like, dude, I got a woman, I got a woman. So I walk in a place, whether it's a strip club, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a regular club, and I would have all these women around me talking to me, getting their numbers and stuff, and he would make excuses. I'm like, look, that ain't got nothing to do with it. So I'm trying to teach him some game. So I was like, we were at a strip club. He's 20, like 23 or 24. And I'm like, dude, you have an older brother. You mean to tell me your older brother didn't teach you shit? Because I didn't have no older brother. I didn't have. He's like, that's not important. So I see this girl, and I'm like, hey, my homeboy wants to arm wrestle you for your phone number. And she's like, and she looked over, and he thinks because he's big that she was into him. So he was about to let her win. I said, you dumbass. I said, look, the hardest part about this thing, I asked him, I said, how much does a polar bear weigh? He said, what? I said, how much does a polar bear weigh? He said, I don't know. I said, enough to break the ice. I said, the hardest thing about women is breaking the ice, getting over to them, talking to them, engaging them, finding out that they're intelligent, finding out what they like or don't like, but just having a conversation. Then you get the
Yeah.
number, and then you expound on that. So I'm teaching them, and there's so many things I'm teaching them, and I'm like, so you don't know anything. You don't know nothing. He's like,
You
not
see,
really.
okay, but hold up, though. Hold on. That is relevant to this conversation. And here's why. Because he has co signed on a certain type of behavior.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, meaning that he allowed himself to be indoctrinated into a way of thinking that was substandard to his true being, to his true self.
He didn't recognize who he was.
Correct. And so he shackled himself. So he co signed on a level of existence that he thought to be the
That was lower.
status quo.
But the thing is, that's just a small example. All of society is doing that shit right now. You know, all of society with the media. Oh, it's the Delta variant. Look, all that shit right now. So we're scared to go outside. We're co-signing on a
Bro,
vaccine that we don't know if it worked.
the crazy shit is that people are co signing on being played. That's the part that is crazy to me,
Look,
is
how many
how,
how, how many times have you talked about? Hey, that ain't nothing but pimping. If
bro, it
pimping, a
ain't
pimp
nothing.
recognizes pimp, pimp recognizes game, and so when you realize the biggest thing a pimp does is create equity where none exists. It's like a crackhead who you ever see crackheads fight? They always fight over this imaginary money. Nigga, you smoked my shit last time. Now you owe me $50. But that's what they're doing. They're creating invisible equity. This shit that doesn't even exist, and now you're fearing something that you don't. That's not even tangible. And then how many people tell you all these people died of COVID? I said, how can you tell? Well, the number. How can you tell? If somebody gets shot, I can recognize a gunshot wound. If somebody's in a car accident, I can recognize that. But COVID, what's the difference between a COVID corpse and a fucking heart attack corpse and a cancer corpse? You can't tell. So don't sit here and try to tell me how many numbers just because with my naked eye, I can't discern it. But they can create that shit. They can tell you whatever. And these people are authorities. This woman's an authority on this. She's a doctor in that. Now I'm scared. You scared of what? That shit was already there. You're scared of something that could have hurt you or couldn't have hurt you.
Well, look, this is the thing. People will co-sign based on emotion sometimes. And the emotion behind this whole coronavirus nonsense is fear. And what I see, dude, okay. What is refreshing, though, are the people that resist. The people that do not co-sign. Man, I had a conversation with this older white gentleman recently. He's a business owner. And, you know, you can tell that he's wise. He's lived a long life and he's paid attention his entire life. And he's become wealthy because of it, you know. But we were talking about this entire thing. And he was talking about how he didn't live through this past year with fear. And I asked him, I said, "Are you a man of faith?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And he said, "You know, there's a lot of people who lost their faith in the darkest hour and they co-signed on evil. They co-signed for darkness to come into their life. You know, and that's another way you can co-sign. You can co-sign for darkness, man, and that's a horrible, despicable thing that just grows and grows and grows.
Yep,
like
you're
mold.
in your own head. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just self-doubt, it's doubt of this, it's doubt of that. And don't get me wrong, sometimes doubt is healthy because you shouldn't trust everything, but you sit there and get in your own head and you convince yourself that it's a bigger threat and that you're better off doing this. You're better off doing the chicken shit move, or you're better off making up a lie for somebody else. And right now, that man wasn't going to live in fear. He's like, you know what? You gave me the numbers, you gave me the information. I'll decide how I want to react to it. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, we shouldn't have to worry about the government going from door to door to see if you're vaccinated. So what if look? That's what the Second Amendment's for. You know, I'm gonna shoot your ass. I'm gonna give you a shot, all right. What I'm saying is that people co-sign because they don't want to be alone. And I had this talk with one of our homeboys that, you know what? I said, are you alone or are you lonely? He's like, what's the difference? I said, lonely is the fear of being alone. Lonely will have you doing all kinds of crazy shit. Lonely will have you jerking off, calling your ex, doing all kinds of unhealthy shit. Lonely will have you making poor decisions financially. Lonely because the potential of being alone. That's that lonely. You're so afraid of being.
Okay.
And you're not alone. You have a family. You got kids. You got a wife. Whether she's there or not, you have so much other. But just that fear of being alone, lonely, will cause your downfall.
Okay, so let's speak to the relationship co-signing. So impulsive behavior and lonesomeness are horrible combinations. And it creates opportunities to co-sign on things that lead to your downfall, your self-destruction. So let's talk financially for a second. When you marry somebody, you marry that person's credit.
Yeah.
And so before y'all get married, you need to be doing things to bring that person's credit up.
That's
because, you're tied to credit on this, mortal coil until you're gone. It's inescapable, dude.
Okay, that's another mind fuck, because you know as well as I do, credit ain't real. It's a fictitious number. It's a social construct.
Wait a minute. It is, though, because you pay your bills. Yeah. See, no. See, what you're not paying attention. See, that's a mistake you're making. You're making a mistake because you pay your shit on time. Okay, so you're oblivious to bad credit and things.
Oh no, I got bad credit.
Wait. Hold on. Let me clarify. See, but you have a good job and you pay your bills on time. And you listen, your mom taught you about credit as a kid. Okay?
Oh yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I had an American Express card when we were 7. I had an American Express card. Yeah.
So, but you understand that like it's tied to the moves you make. I mean,
Yeah.
it is very real. Now, whether you are
I'm aware of it. Yes.
yes, now whether you co-sign on the fact that it is a shackle,
Yes.
that's on you. You know what I'm saying? It's either something that you use as a tool or it shackles you. But
But very deep.
all all I'm saying is that when you yoke yourself with another human being, their monetary habits hover near you.
Uh, Oh wow. Oh okay. 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 I got two stories about about co-signing on bullshit when it comes to
Roll
credit.
with it. Go.
Okay. First one about me and my old lady. My credit score was low because of late pays on my mortgage. When I got those bad car accidents, I got in multiple car accidents. In fact, when I rolled over the interstate, it was your little brother that came and got me, took me to the hospital. So just so you know. So I got some slow pays, some other stuff, and it was really frustrating to me because I was talking to one of my white friends. I said, "Do you have any slow pays?" He said, "Yeah, I pay my mortgage late all the time," but it did not affect his credit in the same way it affected mine. So I had some late pays, and then so I settled the lawsuit, pay all this stuff off, and my credit score does not jump up; it creeps up. From 530 to 540 something, some crazy shit. And it's just really super annoying. So it took me some time. I got my credit back decent. I sold my house, and but before I sold my house, me and my wife at the time we made up our minds. I'm going to focus on your credit. She read every book on credit. Her credit score is like 780. She got it all the way up by doing all this stuff, and I helped her pay some stuff off initially, but she did it on her own. But she was like, yeah, because we're together, we worked it up, and so that's the success story because she read these pamphlets. Now on the flip side, um, I don't want to put nobody's business out there, but I got a homie who his old lady was talking about fixing her credit and kept browbeating him and browbeating him. And I want a bigger house and I want this and I want that and I want these things. And so she ain't because he couldn't help her provide it or whatever, she left and went someplace else. Now, it's really frustrating to me because she has been on her own for 2.5, 3 years, and she has an apartment. She don't have a house. She has an older car. She has a car payment and all these other negative things. And I'm like, well, if that was the case, as if he was a problem, as she kind of stated that he was a problem, when she left and removed herself from that situation, shouldn't she be more successful now? Shouldn't her credit score have taken off? It hasn't. So I'm like, that's co-signing on the bullshit. And he was even going through depression and all upset because of the things she was saying. Because he was like, man, you're right. I'm the problem. I'm the problem. That's what happens when you co-sign on bullshit. When you sit there and co-sign on some shit that I'm like, dude, that's not a good idea. Dude, that's not healthy. Like, hey, why don't you go talk to my old lady? Why don't you invite your wife, me, all of us go out and we work on this together? I offered, and people shrug me off because I'm trying to help. I want you to improve.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what happens when you co-sign on bullshit. Because you actually start blaming yourself for some shit like, and that's what I meant by a fictitious number. I'm like, yeah, you're right, yo. Credit is real. It's how we get through this society. But I also know you'll say fuck credit in a second. I know you.
Yeah.
You're like, I
No,
ain't worried
no, for
about
sure, for sure. Because
because you're more
and
worried about hold it, but you're more worried about your mental health. That's what that's about. You're not about to sit here and let some number that you can't touch dictate your mental well-being. But
well, I'm not going to keep my eyes on a speedometer while I'm driving all the time,
yeah,
and
can
I'm aware of how fast I'm going based off of my experience with driving. So I know if I am paying my bills on time and I'm doing things that are, proactive financially. Oh, I know when my credit's going up without even looking at it. So that the next time I wind up looking at my credit, I'm like, okay, I knew it was going to be above 700 because I've been doing this and that and that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but that's experience though. You know what I'm saying? And well, let's just say that before, um, you take gambles. You know what I'm saying? You gamble. Okay, look.
You take chances.
Sometimes we like to gamble with the odds. You know what I mean?
But hold on, me and you grew up on Star Wars. Never tell me the odds. You tell me the odds, I can't do some shit.
No. What I'm saying is like, I'm not saying don't. I'm telling me the odds. I'm just saying like the edge.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you know what I'm saying, like
yeah. You walk
you
it.
know the ability to score big on something. You did.
I get you. I get you. Look, when we say cosign, what we're saying is that people are vouching for things that ain't what they think, or they don't care. They didn't vet it. They just, oh yeah, this guy's cool. Oh yeah, she's great. Um, and it can get you into a lot of trouble. But also, sometimes the co-signing is because you're lazy and you don't want to. I don't know if you don't want to. You really don't care about this. You just want to get this person out your hair, or it's so many things. But the co-signing, it's just not healthy. You
Okay,
know.
but let's go marching into this swamp real quick. So this political co-signing and people that will project their hopes and dreams on a politician, and you're co-signing on sociopathic behavior and you don't even realize it.
Mm.
You're co-signing on a person that don't give a flying handshake about you or your family. You're co-signing on a person that belongs to a secret cult that has a secret handshake and they do dark deeds and practice dark arts behind closed doors. And this stuff doesn't come out until
Oh,
much later.
hold it. This is so deep. You ever look at Facebook and you see somebody that you know, but you never cared for the person?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just click on it, like, oh, what's up? And half these people from college, and like I said, if you're into Freemason, that's cool, that's your thing. But these people pledge that, and they get so high, and because of that, all of a sudden they have status now, and all of a sudden that you're no longer a nerd because you belong to this organization. And it's really frustrating to me because I'm like, you're still a piece of shit. You are still a turd that got flushed and came back up, but all because that you're part of an organization. Who have you helped? What have you built? But no, just because you're associated with somebody important, you feel important. And
Okay. You know what you're talking about though? You're talking about a fast food friendship.
yes, a franchise.
Yeah. No. A fast food friendship, meaning that person is they're empty calories. They're all flavor and no substance.
Mm-mm.
And that person is not going to fill you up. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to fellowship with that person and get deep and have these conversations that will enlighten things, that, you hadn't known before. But the benefit to knowing a person like that is because if you treat that as just a superficial relationship, that's all it is. So it won't harm who you are as a person. It won't harm your reputation because you have very little interaction with that person.
You were a whole person before that association. You know,
Correct. But knowing that person may open a door for something. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Or, what I mean, the fact that you know that person, meaning that person will conversate with others about you and may even talk about some of your exploits or some of your goals or accomplishments. And through 6 degrees of separation, your name is now in the mouths of powerful people because that fast food friend had the connection to those people. You see, you don't need to extract or you don't need to get a lot from a friendship with a person. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just topical.
It's just there.
Right. Now, I mean, of course, dude, like everybody they're not strong swimmers and they stay at the shore. That's cool, man. Motherfuckers like us, we're frogmen. You know what I mean? So
I gotta go deep.
exactly. Under extreme circumstances. But yeah, dude. So, but then again, you know, there's these circles within circles, concentric circles that people are in. And, you know, I was talking to my barber today about 6 Degrees of Separation. So I'm working on a movie right now, and the Jay Dilla is part of the backstory. And it's crazy because, like, I never even considered that like a possibility, you know what I'm saying? Because like I always like listened to his music and I thought it was dope, but I never thought that was a person that I would meet. But yet here I am working on a film now, and there are people involved in this film that are directly related to him. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Dude, it's really cool and interesting in that way. You know what I mean? Like, life is a trip, dude. You know, life is a trip. But, you know, coming back to our topic of co-signing, you know, cats, like back in the day.
If you want to know what somebody's like, I think one of the best things is that they put you last, but they'll call you first. You dig what I'm saying? Like these people ain't got no time for you.
Wow.
You know, help them out all kinds of different ways.
Wait. You got to repeat that. You said like, put you last, but they'll call you first.
Yeah. Beware them niggas that put you last. Like, but they'll call you first when they got a problem. That's an indication of some co-signing shit, because you need to be careful about co-signing on shit too, because you need to hold that motherfucker accountable. Like, hey, motherfucker, I needed a ride last week. You didn't have time for me. I'm not being rude. I'm not being disrespectful, man. You know, you need to work up to me. What does that mean? You need to call 5 or 6 people before you call me. I ain't that. Don't call me first. You know what I'm saying? And people don't. And when I say that, like I said, I'm not being mean or disrespectful. What I'm saying is that let somebody love you the way you love them. And I know not every relationship is going to be perfect. I get that, but you deserve love. And sometimes that's that head case shit where you blame yourself or you don't think you're good enough. It's the same thing I was telling you about my homeboy. You've already convinced yourself that you're not on that level. By doing that, that's co-signing on bullshit.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of women, dude. A lot of women will co-sign on abusive behavior, even if it's not even physical. They will co-sign on psychological warfare and deep-seated problems that they may have cause a repetitive pattern that allows entry vectors for abuse, that creates entry vectors for abuse. So, but men and women do this too, though.
But hold it. We're talking about women, but something that women don't know. Men are toxic to other men also. See, women, you talk about toxic masculinity, whether you believe it or not, it does exist. I'm not saying everything is like that, but I had a homeboy, cousin, real close friend of mine. He needed some help this week, and I'm helping him. And he's going through something, you know, some real personal shit with his grandmother. But he said some deep shit to me, and I made him laugh, but it was some fucked up shit. He said, you know what, duct tape? You know, I was talking to my dad, you know, he's like 36, 38 years old, right? He said, my dad said to me, he said, you know what, nigga, you might not even be mine. He's like, what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I said, why'd you find out? He said, that's what I said. I said, let's go do the DNA test. I said, is your dad rich? He said, no. I said, is your dad like NBA? You got all kinds of money, cars? He's like, no. I said, why the fuck does it matter? Like, nigga, he's a burden on you. I'm like this nigga made it seem like he was enhancing your life and shit.
Right.
Like, I would do that shit with my dad one time. My dad called me and said, hey, son, I need a car. My dad asked me for a car. I'm like, nigga, you didn't buy my first car. Why the fuck I gotta buy you a car?
Right.
What I'm saying is that so many times that women think that men just mistreat women. People mistreat each other. Men mistreat other. Like my dad ain't shit. Love him to death, but he ain't shit. My homeboy, the shit he was going through, is like the way his dad said that shit. You would have thought that nigga had something to offer. Like the nigga was bringing something to the table. I'm like, he's like, he wasn't there. It's not like if you're not my dad, this was a complete waste of my time too. Trust me, nigga. Trust me. So that's what I mean by co-signing on bullshit.
No, that's legit. I mean, no, man. Like, I mean, that goes back to even like childhood. I mean, how people are toxic to each other. But I mean, you start to filter people out as you get older. You know, I mean, starting in high school, you start filtering out people that you were cool with, and you know, there was just cats I didn't hang with that had like, you know, I could just read a motherfucker, man, be like your weak jawline, and
That's what I have to say. Or like, hey, you ever remember like your mom be like, "Don't hang around them; they gonna go to jail, or he ain't gonna be shit when he grow up."
yes,
How the fuck did they know these niggas is in jail? These niggas ain't shit. How could
right,
you tell in third grade this nigga wasn't gonna be shit? The way he finger paint, nigga. How could you tell?
right. No, he's a serial killer. Don't hang with that person,
Hey, don't fuck with that nigga. They ain't got nothing to offer.
dude. That's some funny shit. But then you know, but moms be knowing, man. Like they know. They got that third eye.
Super intuition that's like super accurate. Like they might only be like 30% accurate, but that 30% they on, nigga, it's super 30. It's
Right.
super.
Right. Um, I don't know, man. It just I like when you date women and you see the stuff that they when you can see the baggage, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And you can see how they have allowed the certain things to happen. Like I really look into that, man. You know
Look,
what I mean? Like,
how many women have ruined relationships because of their homegirl, and you always hear that. You hear it more with men. Oh man, you still hang with your boys, but how many women got miserable homegirls and they convinced them that they're miserable too and they're not?
okay, so park it right there.
I know.
Co-signing, co-signing on misery.
Like because she's terrible, you must be doing terrible also. Like, I remember, this is so bad. I was bouncing in a club and I was letting these ladies in, and it was like four of them. But the one homegirl, the least pretty homegirl, was the one kind of giving me a hard time. I said, well, hold on, and she went off on me. I'm like, oh, I said, you don't have enough visual equity to talk to me in such a manner. She said, what do you mean?
Wow.
I said, you're the ugly friend. Stay in your place. The only reason you here is because you driving. You know what I'm saying? I got pissed. I'm sorry, I lost my temper, but what I'm saying is co-signing on misery because she must be miserable. Excuse me, because she's miserable, you must be miserable too. I got one for you, but since you know this person, I'll be discreet. I had a family member going through some shit. She broke up with a dude. She's going through some shit, right? And she called me for some advice, and I'm like, look, calm down. This motherfucker's not a winner. And I said, whatever you do not cut your hair. And she paused. She's like, how'd you know I cut my hair? I already cut it. I said, because right now you don't have any power. So you want to affect anything you can. So the first thing you did was alter yourself.
Mm,
That's because because you felt powerless. The one thing you could do is change yourself. And that's what you jumped on when like there was nothing wrong with you. Just because a relationship doesn't work doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
mm,
Co-signing on bullshit. I use the analogy of baking a cake. You can do everything right for that recipe. Follow the recipe to the T. That cake can fall. It could be the humidity, could be a loud noise, could be all kinds of shit. But because it's not because you were a bad cake baker or a bad baker. There were outside things that influenced that. And so that's what you mean when you talk about that kind of stuff. I got so many stories about relationships and women because I've been through a lot of situations. But one
dude,
thing.
listen, I was dating this chick, and her sister ruined the relationship. Her sister ruined the relationship. I mean, look, I understand you close with your family,
I get
but
it. I'm
her
happy.
sister, her sister was an idiot. and she made bad decisions. And because she had sympathy for this broad, she listened to her more than she should have and jeopardized our relationship as a consequence.
But some of that sympathy is empathy. If you're dealing with an empathetic person, which they take on the burdens of other people, and by
Right.
doing that, they convince that's co-signing on bullshit. I'm like, okay, I can be sympathetic to your issues, to your needs, but I don't have to experience it. But you got people that believe that they have to experience something for it before me to be able to whatever, and that's some dumb shit. You know,
Dude,
I'm not.
I've seen beautiful women co-sign on degenerate behavior
Mm,
and become drug addicts because their man was a drug addict.
that's ridiculous.
Dude, it's sad. I've seen beautiful women too, man, that were clean, didn't do any drugs, that did not have addictive personalities, but they were codependent. So their addiction was other people, you see.
You couldn't be addicted to a person, just for the record. But like, you know this to be true. I was in a relationship, and you were counseling me going through this shit, and I got upset, and I explained to her. I said, "You're having the argument with the wrong person." She said, "What do you mean? That argument you should have had the last nigga you was with, because I didn't do the shit you're arguing with me right now. You have the courage to argue with me because you know I'm not going to do certain things, but you
Right.
didn't have the courage to speak up last time. So I'm like, why don't you call your ex, hash it out, and come back to me? I'm
Right.
not. I don't care if you work it out, but this unresolved shit, that's not fair. It's not fair that you put. People say baggage. That's such a fucking fucked up term. I get it, but what I'm saying is that it's called relationship residue or residual energy, whatever you want to call it. But don't sit here and blame that other shit on me, because I'm not doing that shit. And look, black women, women of color, because I love black women. You might not know this. Stop keeping track of your exes on Facebook, my nigga. Stop hustling backwards. Stop looking in the rearview mirror because he got married this week. No, you're so busy about the past that didn't happen. You're gonna fuck up your future. Stop doing that shit. And that's what I mean by co-signing on bullshit. Hey, the
Listen,
funny
no,
thing.
but hold on. Women like to collect dudes. And what I'm saying is that because women are emotional creatures, more so than men, they like to keep these, they like to keep these,
Mementos of the past.
no, they like to keep emotional scrapbooks of you.
Yeah. I dig it. I dig it.
You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so like they won't get into a full relationship, restart the relationship with you, but they like to have your movie on their cerebral Netflix whenever they want.
Look, hey, one of the worst things, like women want you to remember them. How look, we were always taught that women date men because they think they can change them. Men date women because they don't want them to change. When you met her in the club, she was this size. You get together, she gets bigger. You got kids together. Women get with you because they think they can fix you, whatever. But I know there's a lot of women that would hit me up because they're fat now, but I was fucking them when they were skinny, and they talk to me like they're still skinny. Like I'm like, hey, nah, I can't. I'm married. I can't talk to you. And I'm like, I realize what they're doing. They want somebody who messed with them in the past when they were smaller because they want that energy. They want to feel like, yeah, you can pick me up, and yeah, forklift, my nigga. But
Mhm.
what they're doing is they're gravitating towards an old memory of themselves when they were this, when they were that, and that's not cool. I mean, like if you're too big, work on it, lose weight, get healthy or
Dude,
whatever. But
women
don't.
women that keep themselves together are the most attractive. You know
Period.
what I'm saying? And I'm not even saying like she ain't got to be a 10. Oh, let me specify. She don't have to be an ATL 10. You know what I mean? And if she is like, if she looks decent in the face, but she's really taking good care of her body, that's really more attractive than some materialistic Instagram thought. You know what I'm saying? It really is, man, because it shows that she has awareness that spreads beyond the physical. that emanates from within.
But
You
how
dig?
about that? I think what people don't get is being honest with themselves. So many people aren't honest with themselves. She or he or they or whoever you want to call, they're being honest with themselves about where they are, what they don't want to happen, or
Hmm.
yeah, my mom did this. So that's what happens when you have honesty. That's what this co-signing thing we're talking about is basically being dishonest to the point where you can literally not blame yourself because you're like, oh, I didn't know no better. Oh, somebody else vouched for this motherfucker. You're doing that because you want to relieve your culpability. That's not fair. A lie is a lie no matter who tells it. A lie is a lie no matter how you react to it. So sometimes that ignorance, that veil of ignorance, is on purpose. They don't want to know the truth because they don't want to deal with it or handle it or whatever. Or what happens is when you have a fucked up lifestyle and you wake up 20 years later, you're fat, you broke, divorced 3 or 4 times, you got kids that don't look like you, all kinds of shit. So what we're saying is when you co-sign on this shit, then you're responsible for that shit just as much as the person who lied to you. So it takes two people to lie. One to say it and one to believe it. And the word believe, be lie, it means bring a lie into being. That means you're convincing yourself of some bullshit. So no, I don't believe in God. I know God. You know what I'm saying? So that you got to know some shit. You got to be secure in it. Go that way. But yeah, that co-signing, convincing yourself of some shit that ain't really there. That's make believe, nigga. That's jerking off to some bullshit. Stop it.
So the purpose of this conversation is to draw attention to what co-signing is. From my perspective, it is about awareness, either the lack thereof or the awareness of integrity. And by co-signing for a person, you are pawning your integrity because you're saying that this person is worthwhile investing time into or trusting. And so that's an awareness. And if you are confident in that awareness that that person is 100% legit, then you are then aware of who you are and what that person is worth. But if you are not, and you are speaking from a place of false confidence,
Yeah.
then that is a recipe for disaster. But this episode really speaks to integrity, and either that person that you're speaking on or speaking for either has it or they don't. I mean, look, man, I'm not going to go too far into it, but we talk about hype man or the hype men, people that will blow themselves up and just take stuff from other people and use it for their own. And, just because that stems from a place of shallowness.
Look,
And
the hype man ain't the main attraction. The hype man is there to make the main attraction look better, or
mhm,
the hype. And so you got to be careful about that because what happens is sometimes the hype man takes too much credit. What about that shit? What about the motherfucker that said, "Oh man, I hooked y'all up." Okay, look, you might have introduced us, but I did pursue her. She pursued me. We had common interests. It's all of a sudden you got somebody wanting credit for your relationship, but I'm like,
but
yeah.
see, the hype man is only supposed to be a momentary distraction from the main event. It's only supposed to be a momentary distraction from the headliner.
Look, a good hype man will accentuate. A bad hype man will distract.
Mhm.
A good hype man is going to enhance the entertainment or whatever that is. A
Right.
bad hype man they're going to distract you from it. They're going to cause all kinds of problems, and that's what this co-signing thing is. The hype man is you the shit, you the shit, you the shit. But if you're not the shit, you shouldn't be listening to that motherfucker. A hype man be like, hey man, watch the main attraction. This motherfucker. That's healthy. A hype man should accentuate, should tell you that, hey, pay attention. You're doing good. You're going the right direction. You're being healthy. Hey, yeah, she's good for you. He's good for her. That's the essence. Oh, open your eyes, but love wisely. That kind of shit. That's what. But we know that's not how it always goes down.
So you can co-sign on integrity You can co-sign on misery. You can co-sign on degenerate behavior. You can co-sign on betrayal. Many different things you can connect your caboose to, and it may or may not be worth your time. But it's your level of awareness that will gauge that and may save you from destruction or disaster. But either way, be careful of who you co-sign for and use discernment when you co-sign for somebody. That's all I got.
Look, don't run away from knowledge because that's honesty. That's all. Look, we out. Holla back.
We out. Peace.